The moment I saw it, I swear my spine went cold. I had just walked through the front door, dropped my briefcase by the umbrella stand like I had for the last 20 years, and was halfway through loosening my tie when my phone buzzed again. Third time in under a minute. Not a call. Not a message. Tags. I glanced down and saw it. Her face. His arm. That smug, tilted smirk Jenna used when she thought she was being clever. The caption read, "Work husband, real husband," with a little wink emoji, like the whole damn thing was a joke. The photo itself wasn't the worst part. I could have lived with a bad angle or even the too familiar lean into his shoulder. But it was the comments that burned through my chest like acid. LOL, you guys are too cute, smiling face with hard eyes. Upgrade. Fire. Tell Nathan not to wait up, smirking face. Public humiliation isn't loud. It's not a slap. It's quiet. It's a man standing alone in his own kitchen with his mouth slightly open, staring at a glowing screen while his dinner gets cold, realizing that the person who promised to protect his name has just fed it to the wolves for likes. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't scream. I commented. For words. Divorce papers are on the desk. That was it. No threats. No questions. No drama. Then I opened my browser, logged into our bank accounts, and started the first phase. Close joint cards. Change online passwords. Lock the estate folders. Transfer primary custody of the safe deposit box to my name. Quiet, seamless, clinical. By the time she even saw my comment, the financial drawbridge was already halfway up. I opened the drive on my encrypted server and created a new folder. Exit, active. Inside, I dropped the first document. A copy of the post. With timestamp metadata. Screenshot. Archived URL. Geolocation. I hadn't planned for this. But I had planned for something. When you manage compliance for defense contractors with black budget clearance, you don't wait for fires. You build the escape route before the match is ever lit. And here's the thing. That guy in the picture? The work husband? He didn't just screw around with my marriage. He wandered straight into a perimeter he had no idea existed. By the way, if you're still listening and haven't tapped that subscribe button, you should. Over 97% of people here haven't, and it genuinely helps our team keep telling stories like this. No fluff, just the good stuff. Appreciate you. Anyway, Jenna always thought I was boring, methodical, predictable. I'd spend hours combing through clearance logs while she rolled her eyes and said I needed to unplug. What she never saw was the other side of boring. The side that doesn't scream. The side that builds spreadsheets labeled Miranda backup. The side that backs up private folders from her laptop once a month, just in case one day things stop adding up. And that day, it had arrived, wrapped in a caption, drenched in mockery, and delivered straight to my notifications like a parade float of betrayal. I'll give her credit. Jenna always knew how to get attention. She just didn't expect the wrong people to start paying it. 1 year earlier, I stood in front of our patio grill flipping halibut steaks, while Jenna scrolled through her work messages like a teenage intern with caffeine jitters. She was laughing at something on her phone, wine glass in hand, legs draped over the lounge chair like she had zero concept of posture or protocol. "You'll like Aaron," she said, almost casually. "He's one of the few guys there who isn't a walking LinkedIn profile." I didn't look up from the grill. "Aaron? New tech consultant. Smart, funny. Reminds me of you, except, he actually talks to people." That was her first landmine. The second came 2 weeks later, at 6:43 p.m., when I spotted an internal Slack thread forwarded to my inbox anonymously. It was Aaron, mentioning Jenna by name, and something about her helping grease the wheels for him to get access to a department portal that was explicitly covered under our Tier 3 contract clearance. Now, let me back up. A year ago, I was neck-deep in a classified cybersecurity deployment codenamed Gladius Echo. It was a temporary joint venture between 2 defense contractors, and because Jenna's HR firm provided logistical onboarding for part of the tech support staff, her entire department had to sign mandatory NDAs, standard boilerplate for most. For me, it was a minefield. I had flagged it early on. Sat Jenna down at the kitchen counter, right where she usually dumped her purse and receipts, and said, word for word, "Your office is involved in a federal contract I'm overseeing. It's not a game. No favors. No jokes. No cross-contact. This isn't one of your HR wine mixers." She smiled, flicked a peanut off the counter, and said, "You act like I'm about to leak the nuclear codes because I answered a guy's email," and then laughed, like I was paranoid. Like I was just a pencil-pushing husband who didn't want his wife chatting with other men. She didn't know I already had copies of the documents. Every signed NDA from her department, stored in a locked directory, indexed, time-stamped, including hers. Aaron's name wasn't on any clearance list. I checked twice, which meant that anything he accessed or anything she gave him could trigger a review. Still, I didn't report it. Not then. I wanted to believe it was a fluke, a blurred line. I told myself they'd never be that reckless again. But I kept the paperwork. And then, about 3 months after that warning, I saw a calendar invite in our synced family account. Holiday happy hour Jenna plus Aaron plus department leads. It was scheduled on the same night I'd flown to DC for a review meeting on contractor security compliance. The irony didn't just slap me. It sat in my lap and took a damn selfie. So when that photo hit the internet with him in it, and the caption mocking me like I was some ghost of Christmas boring, it wasn't just emotional. It was federal. Because now, metadata said Aaron had been in contact, physical contact, with someone inside the HR wing of a contractor that handled top-level access for Gladius Echo. And guess what? Her firm didn't have a waiver on file for social cross-contact. I know, sounds ridiculous. But when you're dealing with cybersecurity compliance at the defense level, it doesn't take much. A forwarded email, a shared login, a personal relationship between flagged employees. Suddenly, it's not about who kissed who. It's about who signed what, and whether the person they were kissing had access to the company Wi-Fi. The real kicker? That same night, while she was probably sipping Chardonnay and making flirtatious small talk about office vibes, I was getting an alert from my private network monitor. Her laptop had accessed a cloud folder labeled Aaron Resume Draft v4.docs. She didn't even bother to change the file name, so I added it to the encrypted folder, printed out the NDA, highlighted the clause that said, any personal collaboration with a non-cleared party is grounds for contract review. She thought it was just a harmless flirtation. I knew better, because sometimes the scariest part of betrayal isn't the kiss. It's the paper trail. Jenna moved out like she was walking into a vacation. No slammed doors, no apologies, just a smirk and a box of shoes she never wore, trailing the scent of overconfidence like cheap perfume. I need space, she said, tossing her key onto the kitchen counter like it was a breakup note from summer camp. We both knew this was coming. Sure, Jenna. Just like I knew you'd try to take the gray velvet couch and leave the ugly papasan chair I never liked. Real fair split. But I didn't argue. I helped her carry her last box to the Uber, ceremoniously, like a concierge escorting a guest out of a 5-star suite she trashed. Then I walked back into the house, locked the door behind me, and pulled up my monitor dashboard. That night, while she unpacked her curated gallery of self-delusion into her overpriced studio apartment, I reactivated a dormant contract with a compliance advisory firm I used to consult with. I didn't mention names. I didn't even say wife. I just said, there's a potential leak involving non-cleared personnel and a contact inside the HR loop for Gladius Echo, possibly social, possibly systemic. They responded in under 4 minutes. Meanwhile, Jenna was celebrating. I know this because she made sure I did. Within 24 hours of her move, she hosted what she called a Freedom and Rose night with her girlfriends. Her captions were always passive-aggressive poetry, starting fresh with the best women on earth 2 hearts wine glass. Here's to the men who make room for better ones. Aaron says I laugh more now. He's not wrong. One post caught my eye. A dimly lit photo of Jenna in pajama shorts and a wide grin, wine glass in hand, hair tossed like she just filmed a shampoo commercial. But it wasn't her I focused on. It was the blurry reflection in the TV behind her. Aaron, on her couch, shoes off, laptop open, a folder titled Onboarding_Backup, faintly visible on the screen if you zoomed in. I didn't zoom in for curiosity. I zoomed in for metadata. I archived the post, logged the timestamp, ran a frame enhancement to confirm identity, then filed the image in my encrypted drive under a new subfolder, Incidental Evidence. I didn't say a word. But Jenna? She was saying plenty. To her friends, she became the wounded heroine. Aaron and I are just close. He listens. Nathan was always buried in spreadsheets. As if years of stability could be undone by one man's lack of candlelight and charcuterie boards. She told one of her friends, loudly enough on her speakerphone that I could hear it through the wall when she came to grab mail. I honestly think Nathan's just jealous. Like, sorry I moved on before he did. I smiled at that, because jealousy implies someone wants what they lost. I didn't. What I wanted was quiet damage. What I wanted was the long, slow unraveling of someone who had confused attention for invincibility. So I did what she never expected. I didn't accuse her. I submitted evidence. Anonymously but with precision. I flagged activity logs, document timestamps, location inconsistencies in access protocols for Jenna's department network. All tied to someone who had no formal clearance, but somehow had recurring access to internal resources at multiple sites. And then I let it sit. Let it breathe. Let the quiet men in quiet suits review the information on their own time. The beauty of systems like Gladius Echo is that they don't run on emotion. They run on process, on trust, on compliance. And when that trust breaks, no one yells. They just start removing access one layer at a time until the world you thought was solid turns to vapor. Jenna poured another glass of wine, tagged Aaron in another boomerang of laughter and low-stakes rebellion. She thought she was in control. She had no idea I'd already pulled the first thread. And now I just had to wait until the whole sweater unraveled. Aaron got the email on a Wednesday morning. Not the start-of-week catch-up day. Not the Friday fade-out day. No, Wednesday. The most inconvenient day to learn your entire professional standing is quietly being dissected by a compliance department that doesn't return calls. The subject line was harmless enough. Internal review notification, conduct review pending. He assumed it was spam until he opened the PDF. The first paragraph was dry legalese. Something about unauthorized data environment exposure and potential conflict of interest with personnel under classified vendor relationships. The next paragraph dropped his name. His full name, middle initial included. Aaron Whitmore, Jr. It wasn't spam. It was a warning shot. Buried halfway through the notice, it mentioned a timestamp, the exact night of Jenna's wine party, then a list of flagged devices, then a screenshot of the folder on his laptop, frozen mid-frame from the TV reflection, pulled straight from Jenna's now-deleted selfie. And at the very bottom, Jenna's company's compliance officer CCING, the VP of Legal Affairs. Aaron nearly dropped his phone. He called Jenna immediately. Not a casual call. One of those silent rage dials, where the greeting is just heavy breathing and the sound of disbelief. What the hell did you do? Jenna had just come out of Pilates, sipping her overpriced smoothie, high on endorphins and delusion. Aaron? Oh, slow down. I just got flagged. Your company sent me a letter. Something about protocol breaches and security exposure. With my name in it. Okay? She said, like he just told her he stubbed a toe. They knew about the folder, the job files. They had screenshots. From your place. She laughed. Oh my God. Are you serious? That's Nathan. That's so Nathan. He's bluffing. Trying to scare us. Aaron didn't laugh. Jen, this isn't some bluff. I've got a timestamped log in my inbox and my badge is already flagged yellow. You know what that means, right? Pause. Silence. Then, so, what, you think he's hacking us? That's when Aaron realized something terrifying. Jenna didn't get it. She wasn't just underestimating Nathan. She didn't even understand the game she was playing. He tried to explain. You said he worked with defense vendors. You said he was in compliance. Why would you let me access anything while he was tied to that contract? Jenna rolled her eyes. You didn't access anything, Aaron. You were just helping me clean up my resume folder. Big deal. They can't prove anything. That was her version of comfort. What she didn't know, and what Aaron was just beginning to understand, was that Nathan didn't have to prove anything. He only had to raise questions. And once those questions entered the system, people with titles like Federal Liaison and Risk Division Officer started making decisions without asking for your version of the story. Jenna was still stuck in rom-com logic. Nathan was operating 3 levels down in a place where silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Because Nathan never threatened anything. He never said, I'll ruin you. He never yelled, posted, or warned. He didn't even send an email directly. He submitted a quiet report, attached the metadata, cross-referenced her department's Slack exports, included the shared Google Doc where Aaron had commented from Jenna's login by mistake, twice. And then he CC'd the company's legal VP. Just once. No subject line games. No dramatic bolded text. Just facts. That was enough. Because now Aaron was flagged. Not fired. Not blacklisted, flagged. Which was worse. It meant every vendor he worked with would now have a file on him labeled under review. It meant every clearance background check for the next 5 years would ping this event. It meant sitting on the edge of professional limbo while watching people you networked with slowly stop responding. And Jenna still thought Nathan was bluffing. Still didn't see the rope tightening around both their necks. Still didn't understand that Nathan wasn't playing defense. He was writing the ending, and he'd already chosen the font. Jenna strutted into work that Monday like a woman on the rise. New blowout, new heels, new lie, she told herself on the drive over. Aaron had calmed down a bit over the weekend, mostly by drinking and blaming Nathan for everything. She'd rolled her eyes, kissed his temple, and promised it would all blow over. But by 9:17 a.m., she was summoned. "Can you come with me to Conference B?" That was it. No explanation. No calendar invite. Just a flat, clipped request from her manager, Lynn, the kind of woman who usually added a smiley face after every Slack message. Not today. When Jenna walked in, there were 3 people already seated. Lynn, Marcus from IT Compliance, and Caroline, the HR director whose neutral tone could make a funeral sound like an insurance seminar. No one asked if she wanted coffee. "We've been alerted to a potential internal security concern," Caroline said. "Your name was referenced in several flagged communications." Jenna blinked. What is this about?" Marcus slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed emails, chat logs, screenshots. One particular thread stood out. "Aaron, can you just forward me that vendor doc? I don't want to go through Lynn's formal request process again." "Jenna, I got you. Just don't tell anyone, lol. Nathan would kill me if he knew I was sharing stuff from the vault." She'd meant that last line as a joke. A stupid, offhand joke. But now, in this room, it read like a confession signed in blood. "I wasn't actually sharing anything important," Jenna said quickly. "It was just casual. Nothing was sensitive. It was personal." Caroline didn't blink. "Your clearance access is not personal. It's contractual. And your role in onboarding makes you an extension of every vendor contact you approve or assist." Lynn, normally the friendly buffer, just folded her hands. "We're initiating a full review," Caroline said. "You're not being terminated, but your status is being reclassified as under compliance scrutiny." Jenna's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means you're not permitted to interact with internal systems beyond standard HR interface. You'll be working remotely for now. We're also temporarily suspending your input permissions on shared drives." Jenna opened her mouth, then closed it. Meanwhile, across town, I received a formal notice in my encrypted inbox. Subject: Federal Review Initiated, Gladius Echo. The body of the message was short, clinical. Your submitted materials were sufficient to initiate a third-party compliance audit. Formal investigation underway. We will advise if further documentation is required. Attached was a copy of the acknowledgement letter, complete with the signatures of 3 agency liaisons. It was done. I sat back in my chair, watching the cursor blink on the secure drive where I'd stored everything. Jenna's folder names, the chat logs, the timeline that showed Aaron's access overlap. I didn't celebrate. I didn't drink. I just moved the folder to a new directory titled Active, Phase 2. Back at her apartment, Jenna was starting to get nervous. Aaron had gone silent. His badge had stopped working at 2 of his vendor sites. When he emailed IT, he got an automated response. "Your account is currently suspended pending security review. No further activity permitted." When Jenna called, he didn't answer. She tried twice, texted. Nothing. She threw her phone on the bed and stormed to the kitchen. Still, she told herself it's a misunderstanding. They'll see it was harmless. I didn't give him anything sensitive. But what Jenna didn't realize, what she never could realize, is that in systems like Gladius Echo, intent doesn't matter. Contact does. If you so much as breathe near the wrong file while sitting next to a non-cleared party, someone takes notice. And when you forward a vendor doc, even just once, with a timestamp that correlates to a flagged device on an open network, that's not a mistake. That's grounds for audit. Her world hadn't collapsed. Not yet, but the cracks were showing. The polite emails had turned into curt notices. Her calendar was suddenly empty. Coworkers stopped adding her to threads. And Aaron, the man who used to send her dog memes at midnight, had vanished like a deleted file. Jenna still wore the same smirk in public. But in private, she had started logging into her work email 6 times a day, just to make sure she still could. The first real crack wasn't in her job. It was in her card. Jenna had finally found a new apartment. One with tall windows, exposed brick, and just enough overpriced charm to make her feel like she was starring in the independent film version of her own reinvention. She toured it twice, took selfies in the natural light, told her friends, "This is it. Fresh start energy." The realtor handed her the lease and said the words every modern adult dreads. "We just need the deposit. First and last month." Jenna smiled, swiped her Amex, declined. She blinked, turned the card over like maybe the magnetic strip had forgotten who she was, and tried again. Declined. The realtor was still smiling, but tighter now. "Sometimes the system glitches," she offered. Jenna pulled out her debit card and tried her backup account. Declined. No glitch. Jenna's stomach turned, a cold ribbon of nausea winding itself around her spine. She opened her banking app. Joint savings, $0. Every line item, every sub-account, every little pot she'd contributed to over the last decade of marriage gone. Not stolen. Not illegally transferred. Just legally reclassified. The last entry, wire transfer trust holding account, 12:02 a.m. Of course it had happened at midnight. Nathan never did big things during daylight. She stormed outside, pacing on the sidewalk, barely feeling the wind whip her coat around her knees. Called her lawyer. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Third ring. "Eli Rothman," he answered, dry and impatient. "I just tried to pay for my new place and my accounts are frozen. The joint savings is empty. Our credit card's closed. What the hell is happening?" He was silent for a moment. Then, "Did you two have a prenup?" Jenna scoffed. "No, we didn't do that." Nathan thought it was tacky. Said it killed the romance. "Are you sure?" Eli asked. "Because I just pulled your file, and there's a document here labeled Postnuptial Addendum, Estate Structuring Clause. Signed and initialed by both of you 10 years ago." She stopped walking. "What?" "It looks like it was filed as part of a long-term estate planning restructure. You would have signed it during that big insurance and trust paperwork round. 2013, maybe?" She was quiet. Then, slowly, "That was when his mom was sick, right?" "Well," Eli continued, "buried in that filing is a discretionary clause that allows him to move jointly held assets into protected trusts in the event of, quote, anticipated dissolution or breach of fiduciary confidence." "Fiduciary confidence?" She spat. In plain English, he suspected this might happen. And he prepared for it. She didn't even remember signing it. She remembered sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine while he walked her through a packet about protecting our future. She hadn't read most of it, just flipped pages and scribbled her initials like it was a school permission slip. She remembered making a joke. "You should have been a lawyer," and him not laughing. And now, she couldn't afford the damn moving truck. She had to text the realtor. "So sorry, there was a technical issue. We'll follow up later today." She called Amex. They confirmed the account had been voluntarily closed by the primary holder, which wasn't her. Nathan had added her as an authorized user, but she'd never switched it to her own name. She never thought she'd need to. She opened the glove box in her car and pulled out an old receipt for a joint account she'd used for groceries. Walked into the bank. "Hi, I'd like to check on this account." The teller typed. "Oh, I'm sorry, that account has been deactivated. Funds were transferred last week." Jenna forced a smile. "To where?" "I can't disclose that," the teller said. "It's under a restricted account." Jenna thanked her, walked outside, and screamed in her car. She wasn't broke. Not technically, but she was locked out. Her income had always been secondary. The bonuses, the perks, those came from Nathan's side. The investments, the accounts he managed. The quiet empire she never really bothered to understand because, in her mind, Nathan was the boring one. The spreadsheet guy. Now the spreadsheet guy had locked the vault, and she was standing in a parking lot, with half her life in plastic bins, no access to her money, and a lawyer telling her she'd signed away the only safety net she thought she had. Her phone buzzed. A message from her friend Stephanie. "Girl, did you see what Aaron just posted? Looks like he deleted everything." Jenna didn't even open it. She was too busy calculating how much cash she could get from pawning her Rolex, and wondering, how many other things did Nathan quietly prepare while she laughed in his face? Aaron's spiral wasn't cinematic. It didn't come with slammed doors or shouting matches in the rain. It came in stages, small, quiet humiliations that stacked like bricks until the weight of them crushed whatever delusions he still had left. The first blow landed on a Thursday morning. He swiped into his co-working space and the security badge reader blinked red. Not yellow. Not expired. Red. Denied. He tried again. Same result. The receptionist, who usually greeted him with fake smiles and cold coffee, was suddenly stiff. "I'm gonna need you to wait here, Aaron," she said, already reaching for the phone. 5 minutes later, a compliance officer from one of his vendor contracts walked out with a manila envelope and a firm expression. "Your credentials have been revoked. All consulting engagements are suspended until further notice. You'll be escorted out." Aaron sputtered. "What the hell is this? What are you talking about?" The man didn't answer, just nodded toward the hallway. Aaron didn't argue, not because he agreed, but because the part of him that used to swagger was now tangled in panic. By the time he got back to his apartment, already shaken and disoriented, he found an email from another vendor, then another, all terminating services pending investigation into security violations. 3 in total, then 5. One of them included a footnote. "Due to your flagged status, we are unable to maintain association with your profile pending third-party review." He called Jenna. She didn't answer. He texted. Twice. Then again. Finally, a single reply. "Working. What happened? What happened?" What happened is that Aaron Whitmore, Jr., once the cocky, charming consultant with a 6-figure retainer and a fridge full of craft beer, was now a walking liability, and he was starting to realize he'd backed the wrong horse. By Monday, his apartment application for a new lease was rejected. "We regret to inform you that due to recent background check findings, your application has been declined. No further explanation. No appeal process. Just the polite annihilation of a man whose name now pinged on internal compliance servers like a fire alarm." He called Jenna again. This time she answered. "You have to fix this," he snapped. Jenna's voice was frayed. Not defiant anymore. Just tired. "Fix what? I didn't do this. I've lost every contract. My name is flagged. They say it's some investigation tied to you. To your company." "No," she said flatly. "This is Nathan. This is all Nathan." Aaron laughed bitterly. "Then why didn't you stop him?" She didn't answer. Because she knew the answer. Nathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't show his cards. He didn't even send a warning. He just moved. One silent domino at a time. Aaron collapsed onto the edge of his now half-empty mattress, staring at a stack of unopened mail and a box of electronics he hadn't touched since the day he started sleeping at Jenna's. He deleted his LinkedIn, changed his number, told his mom he was taking a break from consulting. And Jenna? Jenna was still trying to salvage the last scraps of her former life. But the man she'd leaned on, the one who told her she deserved better, was now radioactive. She couldn't bring his name up without HR going cold. Couldn't text him without worrying her phone was being mirrored. Couldn't even use his Wi-Fi without wondering who was watching the logs. Meanwhile, I sat in my office, sipping black coffee, and opening the final set of backups I'd retrieved from her laptop before she moved out. You'd be amazed how much people forget when they rely on synced cloud drives. There it was, an old folder titled Aaron Docs, buried in her desktop clutter, sitting beside yoga PDFs and a half-finished resume template. Inside, forwarded emails, screenshots, a copy of an internal document she never should have had. Time-stamped, tagged, easily traceable. I didn't smile. I just added the folder to the audit report I'd already compiled. Then I opened a clean spreadsheet and labeled a new tab, Phase 3 Damage Report. While Jenna scrambled to schedule meetings, beg her lawyer for options, and figure out if Aaron's meltdown was reversible, I was already done with them both. They had burned down the house. I just made sure there was nothing left for them to crawl back into. The envelope arrived by courier. No name on the front, just a clean white label with her apartment number and a signature required on delivery. Jenna opened it with a steak knife from the drawer she hadn't finished organizing. Her new life was still in boxes, literally and figuratively, but she'd convinced herself this was just another bump. Inside, a single-page proposal. No drama, no commentary, no emotion. Nathan's offer. Keep the car. Keep whatever furniture she'd taken when she moved out. $85,000 lump sum payout, tax cleared and wired to an account of her choosing. In exchange, a signed gag order, irrevocable, barring her from speaking publicly or privately about Nathan, his work, or any related vendors, subsidiaries, or associates. She waives any claim to his estate, investments, pensions, or trusts. All digital access revoked. Final dissolution expedited through private arbitration. No court drama. No press. Just a clean, quiet cut. She scoffed before she finished reading it. 85 grand? She muttered, pacing in her half-furnished kitchen. He probably made that last quarter while I was doing HR onboarding and making sure his damn health plan didn't lapse. She called Eli, her attorney, and read it aloud to him while chewing on the edge of a pencil. He listened, silent for a moment, then said, "You should take it." That stopped her cold. "What?" "Jenna, this isn't a negotiation. This is a parachute." She rolled her eyes. "He's just trying to scare me. Freeze me out so I walk away with nothing." Eli's voice didn't rise. "And what do you think you'll walk away with if you fight it? I'm his wife, ex-wife, and legally you signed a discretionary postnup that has already weathered a compliance audit and passed scrutiny. You're standing on sand and pretending it's concrete." Her mouth went dry. "I deserve half," she said finally. "We built that life together. You enjoyed that life. Nathan built it." She hung up without saying goodbye. 2 hours later, she typed an email. "I am rejecting your proposal. I will not be intimidated or silenced. If you want this over, you'll negotiate like an adult. Let's see what a judge thinks I deserve." She pressed send. No reply for a full day. Then, at 3:06 p.m., a message arrived. No subject line, just one sentence. "That's the problem." She stared at the screen. "Read it 4 times. The cursor blinked at the end like a warning light. She didn't understand it at first. Then it hit her. She had nothing to hide. But he didn't need to hide anything. She'd always thought silence meant bluffing. But Nathan's silence was different. It was clean, weaponized, practiced. He wasn't threatening her. He was informing her. And yet, she walked straight into the trapdoor. Because what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, is that the moment she rejected the gag order, she reopened every door Nathan had quietly closed with diplomacy. Now, he could move to arbitration with evidence. Now, he could submit compliance logs, security audits, and metadata files as exhibits. Now, he had every legal and ethical right to include everything in his defense, because she declined confidentiality. She thought she was being brave. She was being reckless. Her pride didn't come from strength. It came from not realizing how much leverage had already been stripped from her without a sound. She called Eli back that night, her voice tight. "I changed my mind. Can we reapproach with a counter?" But it was too late. Nathan had already filed the intent to proceed, with exhibits sealed and a list of expert witnesses who could verify chain of custody for every shred of data he'd quietly preserved over the past year. And the $85,000? Gone. Withdrawn from escrow. Reallocated. Removed from the table without a single word of drama. He had offered her a quiet door. She slammed it shut. Now she'd be walking barefoot through the fire. The courtroom smelled like bleach and old paper. Jenna walked in wearing her best neutral-strength outfit, high-waisted slacks, a muted blouse, and that fake poise she'd rehearsed in the mirror. She looked composed. She felt composed. Until she saw Nathan. He didn't look at her. Not once. He sat beside his lawyer, a man whose suit probably cost more than her car, and thumbed quietly through a yellow legal pad, not writing anything. Just flipping pages. Calm. Mechanical. That was the first red flag. No tension. No performative sighs. No eye rolls or smirks. Just quiet confidence. The judge entered. Gavel. Formalities. Oath. Jenna sat up straighter. She expected the opening salvo to be about finances. Nathan trying to lowball her again. She was ready for that. Instead, his lawyer stood and submitted a thick folder sealed in a tamper-proof evidence envelope. "Your Honor," he said, voice flat but firm, "we request this be entered under protective seal. It contains materials relevant to security clearance compliance, contractor code exposure, and internal data breaches linked to the opposing party's personal and professional devices." Jenna blinked. "What the hell is he talking about?" she whispered to her lawyer. Eli leaned forward, confused but curious. "We'll find out." The judge frowned slightly. "You're introducing what, exactly?" Nathan's counsel unsealed the envelope with a court officer present, then distributed 4 marked copies. "Exhibits A through H, Your Honor. We are not asserting criminal wrongdoing at this time, but we are obligated to report security risks when they intersect with the interests of a federal contractor. These materials outline a pattern of data exposure, unauthorized device access, and personal conflict of interest directly impacting project integrity." The courtroom was silent. You could hear the pages flipping as the judge read. Jenna's pulse kicked up. Eli turned the pages slowly. His expression changed line by line. There was a log of Jenna's work laptop accessing cloud files outside of approved VPN channels. A metadata report showing Erin's IP address connected to a secure folder from her personal network. A Slack message Jenna had sent jokingly, "Don't tell Nathan. I'll be disowned if he finds out I'm helping my fake husband with the boring stuff." And then Erin's name, on a federal contractor compliance watch list. Newly added, flagged for unauthorized collaboration and proximity breach. The judge looked up. "Ms. Langley," he said, tone suddenly colder, "were you aware that your devices were used to access and transmit potentially protected information to a party not authorized under federal contract compliance?" Jenna opened her mouth. Nothing came out. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean to. Intent is not the standard here." Nathan's attorney cut in, voice sharp now. "Exposure occurred. Period. Her devices, her access, her lack of reporting. All documented." Eli interjected, trying to pivot. "Your Honor, we question the relevance of these claims to a civil divorce proceeding. They go directly to financial entitlement," Nathan's lawyer replied, already turning a page, "because the assets in question are tied to performance bonuses and compliance-sensitive equity. And if this court rules that Ms. Langley's conduct compromised those earnings, she cannot claim a share in their value." That landed like a bomb. Not emotional, legal. And Jenna, who had expected a tug-of-war over bank accounts and property lines, was now staring down the barrel of corporate loss mitigation, a world she had never understood, wielded by a man who had lived in it quietly for years. Her throat closed. Eli leaned in and whispered, "You said there was nothing, that this was just personal." Jenna's face was pale. "It was personal," she croaked. "He's just twisting it." But no one in the room looked like they thought anything was twisted. The judge closed the folder, tapped the cover twice. "We'll proceed with the remaining arguments, but pending the outcome of this review, the court reserves the right to delay asset distribution until liability assessment is completed." Translation: she was frozen out of the money, indefinitely, and worse, Nathan hadn't made a scene. He hadn't gloated. He didn't even glance in her direction, because this wasn't about making her cry. This was about erasing her name from every system she once thought she had a claim to. And she knew, in that moment, the emotional part had ended weeks ago. Now it was war by paper, and Nathan had already won. The letter came with a red stamp across the front. Certified, signature required. The kind that doesn't come from banks or newsletters or your neighborhood HOA. The kind you have to sign for while still in your bathrobe. Mascara smudged from a sleepless night, with a delivery man who avoids eye contact. Return address, Legal Division, U.S. Federal Contractor Oversight Board. Jenna stared at it for 10 minutes before opening it. She told herself it was a formality. Some bureaucratic dead end with meaningless words like review pending or internal inquiry. She unfolded the letter slowly, carefully, like opening a medical diagnosis she already feared was terminal. 2 paragraphs in, her chest stopped rising. "Based on our concluded investigation and compliance analysis regarding the events tied to the Gladius Echo contract, we are obligated to inform you that your name has been entered into our permanently ineligible for future employment list." Her ears rang. Her hands trembled. She read the line again. Permanently ineligible. This wasn't just about her current job. This was a kill switch for her entire career. Every company tied to government contracts would run her name through that database. Every background check. Every HR search. Every recruiter. It didn't matter if she changed jobs, industries, cities, her name was scorched. Not with a headline. Not with a scandal. Just with one quiet entry on a federal list no one outside the system ever sees. But everyone inside obeys like gospel. Jenna sank into the couch, letter still trembling in her hand. She tried to call Aaron. Again. Disconnected. His apartment was empty. His social media deleted. His email bounced. No goodbye. No, we'll figure this out. Just gone. Like he never existed. She sent Nathan a message. It was simple. Desperate. Was this all worth it? No reply. Not a dot. Not a read receipt. Just silence. Until 2 days later when another envelope arrived. No return address. Just her name. Handwritten. In black ink. Inside was a single page. A scanned copy of her NDA signed. Dated. Every initial clearly marked. The very document she laughed off. The one she skimmed between sips of wine. The one she joked about while handing out vendor logins like candy. At the bottom, stuck slightly off-center, was a yellow sticky note. No letterhead. No explanation. Just 6 words, scrawled in Nathan's meticulous handwriting. Next time, read what you sign. And who you're smiling with. That was it. No threats. No insults. Just the postscript to a chapter she never realized he'd already finished writing before she even thought about cheating. The realization wasn't loud. It didn't come with sobs or screams. Came like a final exhale. She didn't just lose a husband. She lost everything tied to the name she used to introduce herself in rooms full of executives. She wasn't Jenna Langley from onboarding anymore. She was Jenna Langley, the internal breach, the unintentional leak, the blacklisted. People don't warn you when you cross a line that can't be uncrossed. They just stop answering. And when they do speak, it's in 6 words. Enough to remind you that you were never the player. You were just another risk that someone else removed. Quietly, permanently,